What is going on, y'all? Robert Sykes, KetoSavage.com, coming at you with week 3 of the reverse diet. We are 3 weeks into the reverse diet right now, and lots of things to talk about. So, this was an interesting week because I had a farm hunting trip this week. I left for that on Monday, and I returned on Friday. This is a family farm down in southwest Arkansas. I spent the whole time hunting and not training. So this was the first time in 36 weeks where I have not trained, posed, or done cardio every single day, which was kind of a challenging thing for me. So I've been super structured and rigid throughout the prep and pretty much up to this point throughout the reverse diet. And to remove myself from that structure, to be out in the middle of nowhere with limited internet signal, no access to a gym, was challenging. I did bring all of my scales and food and tracked all of my macros, but I didn't have the gym to train at. So I went into this week planning on making it like a deload week, and I did bring some resistance bands to stimulate the muscle while I was there, but I honestly didn't even use them. I tried to totally and fully disconnect from the training. I mean, it's typical for many people to take a structured deload every 6 to 8 weeks. I did not do that at all throughout the prep itself, and I had some psychological struggles in allowing myself to not train for 5 days and not feel guilty about it. And I went back and forth on Monday and Tuesday and most of Wednesday. Should I do the resistance band? Should I not? Having this sensation of guilt come about me. And then I finally decided, you know what? I'm going to take 5 days. I'm not going to train. I'm not going to try and do resistance bands or body weight movements. I'm just going to focus on being present and relaxing and then hitting it hard when I return. So that's what I did. I trained hard the 2 days prior to going to the farm. I trained hard Saturday and Sunday when I returned from the farm, but I did not train for 5 days, and I'm still fine. My muscles haven't melted away into nothing. So that is an example of me having a struggle with removing of the training post-show, but I was able to work through it, and I feel like I'm better for it. So having a disconnect moment there from regards to the training and the posing was good. So that was a positive. Now, when it comes to the macros, I brought all my food there and tracked my intake. I had a group of guys there, and we decided to have a steak night, so I worked that into the macros. I'll pull up the spreadsheet here and show you exactly what that looked like. So again, I didn't do any cardio this week, but I did have 2 refeeds. So let's talk a little bit about the macros this week, because this was another kind of a psychological struggle for me, and I just want to be totally transparent with y'all as I go through this reverse diet, because again, the reverse diet does not oftentimes get the attention it deserves. People kind of throw caution to the wind and they just overeat. I've tried to take a very structured approach with my reverse diet, as I have throughout the prep itself. I feel like that's important, and I just want to be very transparent and document this entire journey with y'all as well. But I am not without flaw. I am not perfect. I am human. So let's talk about the macros and what happened this week. So my planned intake for this week was 145 grams of fat, 150 grams of protein, 20 grams of total carbs. From a macro or from a meal standpoint, that was designed to look just like this here. I have the nut pods in the morning in my coffee. I have 1 Keto Brick. I've been kind of mixing up the flavor there. And then I brought the sirloin steak and the eggs and all the fixings to the farm to have that on hand so that I would not deviate while I was there. So it was an 18-ounce sirloin grass-finished steak, 2 eggs, and then Chip, the media master who's editing this video, he's been dehydrating some mushrooms. So he gave me some dehydrated blue oyster mushrooms, pretty negligible macros on those, but I went ahead and added that in as well, and I've been keeping my electrolytes and sodium and everything in check. So this is the intake throughout the week while at the farm. This is the planned, tracked, forecasted meals and macros. I planned to have that steak night with the guys I brought down there. I tracked all that intake. That was designed to be 290 grams of fat, 175 grams of protein, 20 grams of total carbs. This is what that day looks like. That was on Tuesday, 12/5, and I've got my brick. I've got some coconut peanut butter. I've got 5 tablespoons of butter on that steak, and we got big old thick cut, 1.5 thick ribeye steaks for that steak night with the guys. And that was a delicious, glorious steak. And with that planned intake, I hit the macros on the head. Not sure why that's showing 84 protein. This must be just not syncing properly. But the intake is accurate here. I'm not sure. I must have deleted something there. But the intake was truly accurate. This is just not syncing with my phone app. But I hit the 175 grams of protein, the 290 grams of fat, hit everything like I was supposed to on that Tuesday planned refeed day. Went throughout the week. They're all continuing to eat these big old steaks. I'm eating my little sirloin and watching them salivating the whole time. I get home and I am butchering the deer that I harvested, and my neighbor gave me a lamb, so I'm butchering that lamb. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to do a roasted leg of venison encased in some of this lamb fat, and then cook that for my neighbor whose lamb we were harvesting and my wife and son. So I did that, and I ate the planned macro intake for that day, which was the 145 grams, 150 grams, and 20 grams total carbs. And I was like, man, I'm still hungry. And there's this roasted leg of venison that's absolutely delicious and is much harder to track than like a ground beef, or something of that nature. And I decided to eat more than I had originally planned on eating. And I went back and forth with it. I allowed myself to just simply take a moment and does it make sense for me to eat beyond what was originally forecasted and planned? Because I've taken pride in the fact that I haven't deviated at all up to this point, throughout the prep, throughout the reverse, and I kind of went back and forth with it. And I'm like, you know what? This is just simply meat. It is just simply wild venison that I shot 3 days prior. This is high-quality food. I'm not going to overindulge on a nut butter or some keto treat or something totally, out of line with what I would recommend consuming. So I'm going to eat to satiety on this venison roast. Plus, I didn't want to see any of it go to waste. I'm kind of weird about that. I don't like throwing food away. I never throw food away. It gets used by something. So I decided to eat more of this venison roast. I wound up eating about 2 pounds of meat that day, which put my macro intake on Saturday at 300 grams of fat, 320 grams of protein, and about 20 grams of total carbs. I weighed everything out that I ate over what I had originally planned. It is harder to track something like a roast. I cooked it in some fat. I got as close as I could get with tracking. And after the fact, I had a little bit of a sensation of guilt about me. I struggle with that a little bit. I'm trying to be objective. I'm trying to be transparent and honest with y'all. I don't want to binge. I certainly don't want to return to binging and purging tendencies that are very common amongst competitors post-show. So I want to take a very objective approach to that overconsumption. So I plugged everything into the spreadsheet here. And when you let's look at the spreadsheet from a week 1 standpoint. My weight after the show was on Sunday, the last show, I was 152.3. The reverse diet started at me weighing in at 153.1. A good rule of thumb is to gain about a pound and a half per week post-show. So when you look at what my average weight is doing, which are these bold numbers here, you can see that the last peak week I was 152.4 on average, 153.2, 153.7, 154.7. So I'm not even gaining a pound a week. So I could afford to be a little bit more aggressive with the intake than I am. And I realized all that before I overconsumed the venison. I put all the data in as I'm consuming the venison, and I'm able to kind of bring some peace to my mind and justify that overconsumption. Now, Was that a moment of weakness on my part by going ahead and eating more, having not really planned to eat more? Yes, it probably was. I probably did have a moment of weakness there and should have been more proactive instead of reactive. I would encourage y'all to do that. I didn't track the sodium on that roast. As a result, I woke up quite a bit heavier the next day. Here's an interesting fact. I woke up at 152.3 on Friday, which is the same weight that I was on the day of the show 3 weeks ago. So again, you can kind of see that my weight trend is not really going up at that 1 pound average, in that specific moment. So I had that extra venison rather. There was an additional bolus of sodium there, which explains why my weight jumped up to 156.3 the following day. I knew that it was an increase in sodium. Today, I'm recording this on Monday, my weight dropped a pound. I was 155.2. That will probably continue to drop as my body flushes out and that electrolyte equilibrium restabilizes. But all that to say, I want to be honest with you. I want to be transparent with y'all. That was likely a moment of weakness on my part. However, when I look at the data objectively, when I look at what my weight average is doing, I shouldn't really feel guilty for eating a little bit more meat, totally a reasonable amount of meat. The total intake for that day was 4,000 calories, which is pretty much what my surplus level is in a building phase. And again, my weight is not responding poorly. If I had gained 15 pounds already post-show, I wouldn't have done that. But that is not the case, so I don't feel as bad about having done that. Now, I do want to be more proactive and not reactive. And if I'm going to allow myself to eat to satiety on these refeed days, I want to plan for that as opposed to being caught in a moment of weakness in the moment, because you don't want to find yourself in a feeding frenzy post-show. So what I may do going forward with this reverse is on my planned refeed days, eat the meal that I have planned, eat the higher bolus of calories from fat and protein that I have planned, and it all come from a meat source, like a game animal, either deer, lamb, beef, fish, a quality food, not like keto treats, not a bunch of, keto pizza or pork rinds or cheese or nut butters or things like that, but just pure meat. And if at the end of that consumption of the planned macros, I'm still hungry for more meat and I can be honest with myself and recognize that this is not me being in a feeding frenzy, I may opt to eat more if it's just coming from pure meat, but then continue to track and log and weigh out that additional consumption so that I can continue to gather all that data and be objective in how my body is responding to that additional food intake. So that may be what I do going forward, again, kind of pending how my weight and body responds and composition responds. I've been taking updated photos. I'm going to put some photos here. You can kind of see exactly what I'm looking like. And these photos are taken, again, on Monday, so just a few days after having had this extra consumption. I'm still dialed in. I'm still looking the part. I am not putting on any unnecessary body fat too quickly. So it's hard for any competitor, me included, to separate the objective data and what your body is doing and how it's responding from just the monkey mind brain that you have post-show and being so strict for so long. You kind of have to figure out where you sit on that spectrum and be objective in what you do. But I would always encourage you to be more proactive and not reactive. There is a benefit to allowing oneself to eat to satiety post-show if it is coming from a quality source and you can be objective in what the data is telling you and you're not getting yourself caught in a feeding frenzy. So if I plan on eating to satiety on those planned refeed days and possibly going over the forecasted intake, but then track that to see what that data shows over time, I may totally be at peace with that, in which case I will continue to be transparent with y'all and showcase that on these reverse diet vlogs. But that is what my intake was. The total average intake for the week, once you factor in that additional venison, is still only 2,400 calories, which again is less than it was the week prior when I had the Brazilian steakhouse meal. That was a planned eat till satiety day. And then had a 2,100 day, a 3,400 week rather, for that week of the show. So, I mean, I'm not getting obsessive with my intake. And knowing that and having all of this information is powerful. It gives me an objective view into what my body's doing, why it's responding, and then I can take a very structured, measured approach going forward. And that is key because you need to have a plan post-show. So all that to say, this was a week for me where there was some mental hurdles. I had to try and figure out where I stood on taking that time away from the training, taking that additional food intake and consuming that extra venison, and just being at peace with those decisions as long as I was doing so in a smart fashion. So hopefully that provides some insight as to where my mind has been post-show and can hopefully showcase that I also am human. I am not perfect, but as long as I'm making these decisions proactively with a data-backed approach, you can kind of give yourself a little bit more flexibility and call an audible and then just do things as your body responds. So that is what the data shows. That is what my numbers are for this week. Again, I was gone at the farm, so I didn't do any cardio this week, but I'll resume the cardio, probably 2 sessions this coming weekend. But I'll talk about all that in the week 4 vlog. So that pretty much covers what I want to discuss from a nutritional standpoint. And from a picture and spreadsheet standpoint. I'm actually about to leave and get some blood work done, so I will get some updated hormone panels and lipid panels drawn, and we will talk about those results next week, as well as the DEXA results that I've gotten back. So lots to cover then, but hopefully this kind of gave you all an insight into the week 3 psychological standpoint. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, and we will see you next week for week 4.